talk this week centered around AI and whether or not AI will take over all jobs. We have a panel today with my three presenters, Nayab Sayed Saab, Zain Danial Saab, and Arif Khan Saab. I'll quickly give an introduction of these experts in their field. Nayab Sayed Saab is a technology leader, serial entrepreneur with 30 years of experience driving digital transformation across global markets. As the CEO of HIB Digital, he has led large-scale initiatives in AI-driven workforce development, digital upskilling and reskilling, delivering over 102,000 candidate training days across 67 countries. Beyond the enterprise and innovation, he actively contributes to global policy dialogue and digital inclusion advocacy at the United Nations and international forums, championing equitable access to skills, technology, and opportunities worldwide. Our second panelist is Zain Danial, who is the CEO of ML Sense, an AI consultancy specializing in automation document intelligence. He's an expert in data and AI engineering, known for turning ideas into fully launched products within days. Under his leadership, ML Sense has delivered AI solutions for billion-dollar enterprises, government clients, and Fortune 50 companies, saving over $50 million through automation and intelligent systems. His work includes the Translation Lab, Transcriptor, and advanced AI voice and WhatsApp agents used across multiple industries. Our third panelist, Arif Khan Saab, is a strategic customer success leader based in London, specializing in enterprise AI adoption across the EMEA region. With over 20 years of experience spanning software engineering, investment banking, consulting, and AI strategy, he has spent the last decade helping global organizations harness the power of automation and generative AI to achieve measurable business impact. Arif Saab is passionate about making AI practical, responsible, and accessible, empowering businesses and individuals to use it to drive innovation, efficiency, and long-term growth. So I'm sure everyone agrees that that's exactly who we want to hear from when thinking of AI. So I just urge all of the audience in attendance today to use the chat feature and ask questions. If you could please keep your mics muted until we invite questions after the short introduction and talk. Then we can jump into questions a bit later on in the session. Jazakallah. Over to you, Arif Khan Saab.
Jazakallah, thank you very much. So what I would like to do today is then we're going to start with a presentation. I'm just going to run through for 10 to 15 minutes some key information about AI and the market as I see it, and then we'll open it up and we'll have a bit of a panel conversation. As you've already heard, we've got Nayab Saab and Zain Saab, who have got a lot to say on this topic as well. And so the first thing I wanted to really cover is, the why now? Why are we seeing a sudden change in AI tools? In terms of the tools, we're all using them. All of us see these tools, ChatGPT. You've seen things from Tesla in terms of like self-driving cars and things like that. But why now? What's enabling this revolution and change? So the first thing is to say that we now have a revolution in terms of data. There's more data available than there's ever been before. That's one of the key things. So why are Tesla able to tackle self-driving cars? Well, it's because they've got millions of cars on the road right now that's recording all the information from their cameras and storing all of it. Where do they store that? That's in the cloud. So these online storage, the internet, without that, you couldn't have AI. And then thirdly, this idea of having AI chips or accelerators. There's a company you may have heard called NVIDIA. These companies have been in the news a lot lately. Billions of dollars are flowing into these chip companies for creating chips that are now able to process huge amounts of data. And that's why, although AI has been around since the 1960s, since the 1970s, that's when most of the books were written about this topic and the theory was done. It's really now that we're able to see real world impact, and it's starting to slowly deliver on the promise of what it's always said. What does that look like in terms of performance and like in terms of graphs and things? So just briefly wanted to show this image, which is showing that in the last 10 years, the performance of these chips has increased by 1000x. And the cost of doing some of these things has reduced by 1,000,000 times. So this is what's really enabling it, is why it's making it, why there are actual real businesses now, and why for many years before, there was a lot of promise and talk about AI, but we were never able to quite get there. So what does this enable? What does it mean for us? So we're in the AI era right now. So things that we couldn't do before are now starting to become available. So for example, people will have AI bots on their phone. They can do things like real-time translation. You're speaking into it in one language, it's translating it straight away to another language. You may have seen self-driving cars starting to also be introduced as well. And in terms of what this will be like in terms of this revolution, it will be similar to the internet. And what do we mean by it being similar to the internet? What we mean by that is it's not going to change one thing, but it's going to impact everything in a broad way. So all businesses were impacted by the internet, and all businesses are going to be impacted by AI. All of us have been impacted by the internet, and all of us will be kind of impacted by AI as well. In terms of jobs, we'll have a discussion about that. But I think that some jobs will be affected, maybe eliminated in time, and then new jobs will be created as well. So what are some of the new jobs that will be created? We have someone on the call, Zan himself, maybe a data scientist here. So roles like his are newly created jobs. So here are some new areas: actual engineers, data scientists, and maybe people working on robots. This is what we think of when we think of the new jobs and the new opportunities in AI. But what I want to highlight as well is that some of the existing jobs are also just as important. So with any new technology comes around, and if you want to implement this, you want to take AI and you want it to help in healthcare, or you want to take AI, you want it to help in a retail company to help improve their sales, you're always going to need these kinds of roles. So consultants who can help understand how the technology can be implemented, project managers who can help deliver this, and also trainers as well. So we heard at the start from Niyab Saab the amount of countries he's been to and the amount of training he has done. That is a critical role that existed before AI and will continue to be just as important, maybe even more important as well. So you don't have to suddenly become a data scientist to be part of this revolution. There's other areas as well that you can do to kind of get on here. In terms of how to be part of this revolution, so I've got 3 tips here. So one is to understand the basics of AI. So joining some of these talks, for example, is a great way. There is so much free training on there as well. There's free information on YouTube. There's free information online. A lot of companies have free courses that you can take on their websites. All of the big tech companies like Google and Amazon and others have got free courses available. Understand how it impacts you. Maybe you're already in an industry, or you're already working in maybe insurance, and you're interested in how AI is going to impact insurance. Find within your company where the AI projects are and see how you can help. Again, you don't have to be an AI engineer to be part of this change. If the change is going to occur, there's many ways that you can be involved. Try and understand what it means for you. What knowledge do you have, and how can that help projects related to AI? And kind of, understand what you really have in terms of like deep expertise or experience. Because if you're trying to automate a project, or if you're trying to add AI on top of it, you need to understand how things work in the first place. You need to understand, so if you're in insurance and you want to improve, say, your underwriting, you're going to need to understand how does that work. Or if you're an accountant, you're going to need to know what are the core principles, how does accountancy work. And these tools can't do all of that. They need input. They need to understand where you get information from, where you post information to. So if you're able to provide that expertise, which you already have, you can work with these AI tools to try and help and improve things and make things more efficient. And right now, companies are looking for people even internally to get involved in some of these projects. So I would say, understand your strengths and what you bring, and get involved in these projects if that's what you want to do. 3, there's a famous author called Gary Balls who's written books around the future of work and how do we prepare for the future of work. And he splits it up into 3 categories: mindset, skill set, and tool set. So by mindset, he means be curious. This is a change that is happening, like a lot of changes. Think about how you can learn more about it. Try and be adaptable. The worst thing to do would be to completely say, I'm not going to go anywhere near it. I'm going to avoid this technology. it's another Dajjal and try to avoid it completely. Try and understand it, try and see how it can benefit you. I think with all technologies, there are positives and negatives. So there will always be some negatives to these technologies. Try and understand where it can be fitted into your current work and how you can be part of this change. And for AI specifically, my view is that really the future is machine plus human beings. I don't think AI is going to be replacing people anytime soon. I think the real power is when you have humans who are then using AI and other technologies and they're able to do a lot more with their time, or they're able to achieve a lot more with fewer people involved. So think about how humans and technology can work together. In terms of skill set, I touched on it a little bit already. Try and take courses, learn more about it, speak to people who are experts. Recently the idea of prompting or writing prompts, which is how a lot of these chatbots like ChatGPT work, that used to be a skill that everyone was talking about. It's still relevant now. Prompting, there are free courses online for you to learn some basic prompts. There's free tools for you to try and test this out. So have a go and see what you can do yourself. But then also in terms of skill set, we'll discuss this in the panel as well, is, well, what skills are going to be important in the future? So even if you have really great technology, to be able to make use of it in teams, you're going to need to communicate. You're going to need to understand what different teams are doing. So strong communication skills and being able to work across multiple teams, that's going to be even more important than it has been up until now as well. And lastly, I would say on skill set is being adaptable. We've all seen how quickly these tools are coming up every day, every week. New things are coming out. So being adaptable in terms of being able to, adjust how you're working and trying different things is also key. And then finally on tool set, there's so many tools out there. I'm not going to run through all of these, but there's many tools available. I'm sure most people on this call are probably already using some of these as well. But ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, these other tools are available. Try and have a go. A lot of them do not require very technical expertise at all. And the good thing about this AI technology is the language you use to interact with it is English. It's your type or whatever other language you want as well. It's human language. You're not having to learn programming as we had to in the past. So the last thing I want to just end with before we move into the open up for questions and we bring in our other two speakers as well is there is a lot of fear at the moment. This was a survey just from this weekend, actually. It says that in terms of the UK, a survey was done and by Sky News, and most people's concern around AI is that it will have, job losses will be an issue. I think there will be some disruption in the job market. It will impact jobs, but at the same time, new jobs will be created. There will be some change in the market over time, but I personally don't see it replacing jobs in an immediate future. There's still more work to be done. The technology might increase very quickly, and that might happen, but in the immediate future, based on what I see right now, we don't see like jobs being replaced. What we more see is tasks being replaced, or we see people being able to do more when they're working in collaboration with these tools. So some examples, calculators, people, with Excel and calculators coming along, we still have mathematicians, we still have, finance experts and accountants. It hasn't replaced that. The internet and YouTube and things, the ability to create content as well. Yes, that's disrupted journalism, but it hasn't replaced these things as well. And, robotics, yes, that's had an impact on manufacturing, but we still have manufacturing facilities and people working in these fields. So there's definitely change happening. But I think, we have had changes before. And yes, this one might feel a little bit more scary because of the speed in which it's going and in terms of how good some of these technologies are. But I would say try and look beyond the immediate fear, because there's so much fear in the market and fear in the media, and try and understand, how you can benefit from these technologies, not just at work, but in your personal life and also with Jamaat work as well that you do. So those were my initial thoughts I just wanted to share. And then we can now I'll pass it back to you, Wajid.
Jazakallah Arif, for that. Just a quick question, just based on your slides. What's the difference between the AI that we're seeing today and the sort of general AI that we hear that's sort of on the horizon, that's going to be sort of catapulting AI even further? What's that about, and how is that, do you think, gonna relate to the average person's working life?
Yep, I'll have a go at that one, and then happy for Niyab Saab or Zain as well to jump in. So, I would say the main change up until a few years ago, AI tools were very specific and they worked for one thing and one thing only. So, for example, I worked in the area of fraud detection. So, how do you tell if someone uses their credit card, is that transaction fraudulent? Yes or no? So, we built these AI systems, these analytical systems that would look at just one thing. Um, they would look at fraud and that system could do that. However, that same system couldn't be applied to, say, healthcare. It couldn't help with in other areas. So the first big change is the systems are more general in what they can do. And then the other big change, the real kind of light bulb moment for everyone, was when these systems started to actually output text and generate. So you'll probably heard the term generative AI. What generative AI is really doing is now it's not just analyzing and looking at fraud detection or looking at text or looking at images and describing them, it's creating them. And that's kind of caused a little bit of magic and a little bit of concern as well. These tools are now outputting this information as well. So that's what one of the biggest changes is. Now we're getting outputs. So we're getting images, we're getting video content created, we're getting text and articles created. And where this is kind of headed to, another term that everyone's talking about right now are AI agents, where you can set an overall task for one of these tools and it will plan a series of tasks and then it will run through them. It might even use other agents to try and perform some of these tasks. So you're starting to get into this idea of more of a workforce of these different AI tools all working together. And that's kind of where we're headed in terms of the future, is what I would say.
It's very interesting. Zain Saab, did you also have a few slides to run through to kick off our session today?
I do have some slides. But yeah, I can run through a few slides which are very much related to the topic of AI. Let me do that. Okay, just sharing my screen. So I am not going to start from the start. I'm just going to actually present some slides. So in fact, one slide, it's very much related to what Arif Khan Sahab has said. One thing I actually wanted to point out to everyone is that Shopify's CEO released a memo. It was initially released internally, and then because it got leaked, so he's like, I'll put it out myself as well, because he really meant it. And what the memo said was that all work should be thought about as AI first. AI first should try to do it, or we should attempt to get it done through AI first. And if it cannot be done, then we do it manually. And also for hiring anyone new, you have to first justify it cannot be done through AI first. So it's a very much AI first mandate. And the thing is that Shopify released that memo, but a lot of these other companies have not released any such memo. But I can guarantee you, I can assure you that everyone else is thinking the same. So the other thing that's actually there, very important, is that with this AI first mandate, the whole idea is that you should be working as hard as possible to train up and educate yourself with the right insights on which tool does what and which combination of tools, which particular pattern outputs the right sort of output that you're looking for, such that it can be automated, so that you don't have to do it, so that you get it done through AI and everyone benefits. Um, that learning part is a must. So I would highly emphasize to everyone that that learning part is a must. And in fact, even Hazur, this week with Hazur in a few months back, said something which was very much where he pointed out that look at DeepSeek engineers, right? They were able to cause such a big shock to the American economy that even Nvidia's shares were like down, and it was all because the story was that you need like hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to produce AI frontier models. And what DeepSeek engineers were able to show was that actually you need 5 million or so, right? 10 million or maybe like that. And that caused a huge problem for NVIDIA's story that, okay, you know what, you don't need that many GPUs. And the story is that it's sort of true. It's sort of, you definitely need billions of dollars of GPU, but you can still produce cheaper models as well. And what Hazur was trying to say that you need to become like deep seek engineers, right? Who are educated, who are basically understand AI as much as possible. So you need to be well versed with that. So that's one message I would say. Okay, these are just sort of like insights I've gathered from various places, and I'm gonna share one more, maybe two more. Okay, this one's really important. Um, how jobs are going to be impacted is basically what's going to happen is that there are some jobs which are regulated and some are not non-regulated. So on this chart, you can see that the unregulated things become more cheaper. Okay, TVs, they're like, 500 pounds for like a very, very large TV. But hospital services are very expensive, especially in America, but also like in the UK, you can see NHS is really struggling. And things which are regulated become more expensive, and there AI is going to be introduced or carefully introduced or introduced like partly or very much controlled. Whereas in unregulated fields, AI is going to be basically introduced without any restriction. So what's going to happen is you will see that certain places you won't be able to use AI as much, or it'll be very careful usage. It'll be all compliant based and all that stuff. So that the jobs are going to be impacted in different ways in terms of regulation and non-regulation. Also, in places like Germany and France, what happens is jobs are protected heavily. So even if AI helps, they want people to be there. So that's a different thing. UK, we don't have that. So that's something to be aware of. That if you're in a regulated field, your job is going to be impacted differently. Might be replaced, might be um, uh, you know sort of like some tasks are replaced or something happens, but some things is not replaced at all because you need humans to be there. The other thing that's going to happen is that the budget revolution. So right now in companies, generally speaking, the IT budget is basically about 3 to 7% of the whole budget allocated, where normally sales and marketing is basically allocated like 50% or 30%, 30 to 50%. And normally sales, marketing, and maybe operations is given the biggest budget because those are the ones that actually make the money. IT is actually considered as a maintenance. It's a maintenance cost. So that's why everyone tries to bring it down. What's going to happen is that because AI is able to do so much, as Arfsab mentioned, that it's able to do generative work, the amount of budget that's allocated to AI or software or IT is likely to go 50% because now it can do software, it can do marketing, it can do sales, it can do operations as well. So then it's likely that your job changes or you may lose a job, but then you can re-enter the market by reframing your role. So that's the other thing that might happen as well, or well, will happen, but how quickly it happens, I don't know. So that's something. It's not all negative. It's some jobs are going to change, and I'm just sharing insights in terms of how they are going to change. So I think that's pretty much it. The only thing is, yeah, learning, and yeah, that's it. There's one thing I would say is that um, it's it's an ever growing. There will never be. I know there's a whole thing about AGI that once we achieve AGI, then all jobs will be done through AI, and then we don't need humans. I don't. I don't think that's going to happen. I think some AGI is going to come, and then there'll be a need for even a bigger AGI, maybe like a hyper AI or something, some crazy thing. Maybe then they'll call it alien intelligence or something, right? So there'll always be some next frontier. Um, that's all I would say. And I think let's jump into questions then after this.
Zain Sab, I
Okay.
liked your reference to DeepSeek. It sounds like you're saying that sometimes there's a smart way to go about this, and an expensive way, and they're not always the same. Uh,
So I would say that it's more nuanced than that. One is that what DeepSeek were able to do was that they reproduce the same model, but in order to reproduce the same model, it's cheaper the second time you do it. That's one thing. So someone else can also reproduce the same model as ChatGPT 4 for about 5 million if they have the skills. That's one thing. Second is that Chinese engineers are doing, and or DeepSeek engineers, but obviously there are other Chinese labs as well. They're actually very efficient with their usage of these chips, whereas the Silicon Valley is not efficient. It basically says, let's just throw money at it, and that's going to handle the problem. So that's the other thing, that it's more problems with their approach. And the other thing is that yes, it's true that if you're being more efficient and you are being more careful, you can produce a very powerful model, provided you have the skills and you have at least 5-10 million worth of GPUs lying around.
Good. I would say from just my observations generally, we tend to always have different speeds of uptake with new technologies, particularly software technology, which I think AI falls into that category. How do we prevent people falling behind in the uptake of AI, particularly those people that don't know an easy way to implement it into their workflow already?
uh, Watch YouTube videos, get some courses, and basically try and play with ChatGPT and all these tools, and start and try to produce stuff. So you have to become a creator. You have to produce stuff, and take up courses. Basically, try to replicate stuff that others have done. That's one thing I would say. I think the most important part is that you have to be dedicate yourself to it, to AI, to experiment and keep on experimenting.
We've had a few interesting questions in the chat as well.
I
I'll
think
start with,
what I'd love to do is I've been watching all of these questions come in, and I think I know we're very short of time. I'm going to try and cover off some of these questions within some of the stuff that I wanted to think. One thing I'm very conscious of is I really appreciate the high number of things. We're up to 160 people here, and I'm pretty sure there's mixed skill sets. So from your perspective as the audience, I think what would be great to start off a little bit, take it back to basics. I'm a simple man at heart, and I think a good point to start is first, actually, try and explain to everybody. Everybody's heard this big word AI, AI. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. What is AI? And will it replace jobs? This is the question. This is the most common question that we get asked. And I usually start by saying, let's understand what AI first really is. Now, one thing AI definitely is not, it's not a robot that's coming here to take over humanity. That I can assure you. Not at least for the next sort of maybe 5 or 10 years at least anyway, in the current format that it's in. What it is, it's a set of technologies. You'll hear buzzwords such as machine learning, natural language processing, automation. Machine learning is basically taking loads of data in and then trying to find patterns amongst it and then create some sort of meaningful outputs from that. Natural language processing, more and more. How many of you use Alexa on a daily basis or use Google Voice? It's natural language processing. All AI is doing is taking that to the next level by being able to do more intelligent and more clever stuff with it. Now, most of what we see today in terms of the AI, it's brilliant at one task, but without real understanding or empathy or that whole sort of innovation or creative skills that you're talking about. So that's the first point of stuff. There's a question in the chat which is saying, what should we be getting our children to be looking at? Stuff like leadership, stuff like analytical thinking, stuff like critical thinking, thinking out of the box. All of these skills in the short term, AI cannot replace. And like both Arif and Zan covered earlier, AI on its own is just a tool. AI needs to be augmented with human skills. Those human skills, they're not disappearing anywhere fast. And as a matter of fact, what we're seeing out there in the world of employment is employers are actually now understanding that, hey, technology is moving at such a pace. What you've learned today in 3, 4, 5 months is going to be old hat. That can always be relearned as the new material comes out. But those skills, such as those human skills, communications, being able to work in teams, being able to, all these elements are are coming more and more to the fore. So these are things that you should not ignore from a perspective. Now, how prevalent is AI? 2024 figures are probably way out of date already. IBM's 2024 adoption index stated that 43% of companies were already using AI in one shape or format, and another 36% were already testing. This was back into 2024. Now you can imagine now, full on nearly at the end of 2025, AI is a must-have. People can't escape it. It's that competitive edge that people need. Now, the next thing we talk about, when we talk about AI, what's it going to do to our jobs? Is it a job lost or is it a job shift? Now, this is something very important to understand. Just based on some of the stuff I talked a few minutes ago, what is actually happening in reality is that the shape and feel of jobs is changing. The number of jobs, some of the jobs where you've got highly repetitive tasks like, accounting, basic data entry, these type of things are getting arbitraged very, very quickly. Up to 43%, according to the World Bank, 85 million jobs are going to be displaced. This is according to the World Economic Forum from their report last year. But what the important part is, you must think, oh my God, all those jobs are going, what are we going to do? But 97 million new jobs are going to be created. Now, here's an interesting fact. Those children who are being born today, the jobs which they are going to be doing in the next 10, 15, 20 years, those jobs haven't even been invented yet. They're still taking shape. And that's how quickly stuff is moving. So going back to, we were talking about the learning and augmenting human skills with intelligence. Some of the organizations who are adopting AI are not just growing and beating everybody purely on the fact that they've adopted AI and they're cutting costs out of their business for the repetitive stuff. There is one element of that business, and we see that day in, day out. And I think there's no point in trying to sugarcoat that. That harsh reality is out there. But those organizations who are also then taking the extra time for those individuals that they're saving through the use of AI and actually redeploying them into more core skills, those companies are prospering even further up. So that's very, very important thing to know. Coming in terms of what does the new world of work look like? We've got a new skill-based economy now. Now, the average shelf life of technical skill now is probably between 1.5 and 2.5 years before you need to have the next stuff. And that pace is accelerating day by day. The other challenge is 50% of people, even before we get to where we are at the moment in terms of the technology out there, 50% of the population still lack the basic digital skills that are needed just in terms of getting up to speed with the roles that are out there at the moment. That's the first thing. The other really important thing to remember is many individuals, you have soft skills. I'm going to use a prime example here. People who get involved with Jamaat work, with all the different departments doing the volunteering in various aspects, be it on a local level, at a national level, those skills that you look at, I'm going to make the example even simpler. Let's take our UK annual Jalsa Salana. And the way we take a flat, barren piece of land, we kit it out with all of the infrastructure, we develop it, we have 50,000 people in attendance, and then we wind the whole thing down within thing. I sit there often and I look at it and I think even if you had the most professional of event management companies in the world and literally gave them budgets of tens of millions of pounds, they could not achieve what we as the Jamaat and all the individuals working as volunteers in that event do. All those skills are priceless. And all those skills are way more important than you all recognize. And I think that's the first stage in acknowledging all these skills that you have and then looking at how you can transfer these skills across into a lot of the roles, because these are exactly the types of skills that the market has great demand for. So it's your job in terms of how you articulate those, how you market those, And believe you and me, the blessings in terms of doing that work and being able to bring those skills. I'm sitting here today. I'm going to put my hand on my heart. I sometimes go into meetings, even in through the early part of my career, and I'd be sitting there and I'd finish the meeting. The boss would go, "I'm going out. Can somebody take over?" You'd look around and then like, "Okay, well." And at the end of the meeting, everybody coming up to you, "Did you take a special course to do that?" I thought, how can I explain to these people? This is all work that we did either in, Fala Lamdia and Khadam Lamdia and Sarallah. So these are the things which are the most valuable. So please don't underestimate what you have. Going back to the different types of AI, as AI takes charge, the technology pace, the point at which technology overtook humankind's ability to learn probably happened about 10 or 15 years ago. And that pace now is accelerating even further. So as a result, what is the requirement? The requirement is learning. Even if you do little bits, getting to understand, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, being on top of your industry, learning little bits each day. Even if you make 1% change a week, that's 52% change in a year. So when you add all of that up, so going back to what both Zan and Arif were covering, learning is going to play a very, very key part of it. Now, finally, in terms of the challenge which we already have in terms of what is known as the digital divide or digital inclusion, those individuals who don't have the basic levels of digital skills that are required to succeed in today's world of work. And that gap was already big and everybody was fighting that very, very hard. But here's the interesting thing that everybody should take note of. As AI develops and the technology develops even further, because the pace of change is getting even faster, and remember, as I said, mankind's ability to learn is relatively level. So that gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We've been blessed for the last sort of 2 or 3 years, even at the end of this month, we've got the United Nations World Social Forum headquarters in Geneva. I've had the opportunity to speak at New York twice, Geneva once, and we've been invited to the United Nations in Qatar at the World Forum, at the World Summit this year as well, because this is becoming a real challenge. And how do we keep equality? And remember, like Hazur this talks about day in, day out, some of the biggest challenges to peace and growth and development around the world is the lack of that equity. So how can you help that equity from your sides is to make sure that both yourselves, it doesn't matter what age you're at, your children specifically, landscape on jobs is changing dramatically, especially at the low end of the market. Those individuals who are coming out either as graduates right now or are looking to job shift, those entry-level roles are becoming tougher and tougher to get into. What is the differentiator that can break that gap and help you get into and break into those things is your learning. Get as much experience as you can. Show that you've gone out of your way and you're learning additional stuff, even though you didn't have to. These are the things which differentiate you when you get in front of an employer or in front of a prospective interviewer for a role. So the task ahead, look, it's very, very exciting. It has its challenges as well. But by the grace of Allah, just in terms of networking throughout the Jamaat, the talent that we have across the board in practically every sector you can imagine, not just people who are just there, yes, we're part of that sector and we're part of that industry, people within the Jamaat who are at the top of their trees, and they are literally an email or a phone call away from you guys. And this is another key message, I guess, from Samtul Tijarat that I just wanted to share with everybody. And also remind everybody also the fact that these talks are going to be going on every Monday. So please mark these in your diaries. Okay, let's hand over to some additional questions. Wajid Sab, over to you.
Jazakallah. So Nayab, just on what you were mentioning, what are a few you think key things that industry leaders, CEOs, companies are looking for as key sort of bullet point entries on CVs regarding AI? What are the things that people really should be working on their CVs?
So the one thing with AI is even basic stuff like your Chat GPTs, your Claude, your basic stuff. We teach now the talent. We do talent development for one of the largest digital transformation providers on the planet, a company called ServiceNow. And they've had AI baked into their platform from like 4.5, 5 years ago. And now they're leading in, and they're probably one of the largest companies who are providing real value based on AI. And that's because ServiceNow is based on the data that a company has. So the output and value that it creates real benefit, and it's accurate because it's based on the data that belongs to the company. A big challenge with AI at the moment is that the real value is still going to take a little bit of time for it to come to market properly. There's a big AI hype, and you will probably see in the not too distant future a big chunk of that go over the cliff because they're not able to provide value. So even if you can garner some basic understanding of what is AI, even if you can learn how to do basic prompting on some of the more commonly available platforms and put that on your profile, that should be sufficient. But as it starts to develop, like I'll take one simple example, like ChatGPT, where they're on to, the fourth or fifth revision in terms of its thing. If you can keep up to date just by doing little bits at a time and keeping up to it, that should stand you in good ground as far as the thing. Although AI is on the tick list for a thing, as long as you can even just show that you have basic knowledge of it at this moment and stage in time, unless you're going for specific AI engineering roles, etc., where you'll require a little bit more depth, most employers are happy as long as you can say you understand the basic concepts of AI. They are, as I said, they are more interested in what other skills you have in terms of communications, in terms of innovative thinking, in terms of leadership. These type of skills are actually holding more ground than the technology side itself at the moment.
That's very good advice, Jazakallah. One question we have for the panel is, could AI one day develop its own algorithms or rewrite its own code to improve itself? I know that Nayab Saab mentioned that we're not in danger of AI taking over humanity just yet, but I think this is a real question people have, that if you've got such an intelligent thing that can already, a lot of people use it to write code, how far is it from being able to potentially do that autonomously for itself?
Well, those elements are here already. And in terms, if you look at the stage of AI, so you had basic AI at the start, then it moved on into Gen AI, generative AI. Then it's moved up into agentic AI. And we're already now looking at the next thing, which the platform which we teach for is called autonomous AI. So to put it into very simple examples for everybody, AI on its own were the single tools we should use for a specific thing. Then you had generative AI, which would use the data that was already in the platform. Let's use a simple, let's say you've got a customer service desk that's using AI. And then after a certain number of times, all of the data that it's built up, suddenly the system's able to see, okay, this question's coming from a new customer, and this question we've answered 10 times in this format, and this is the correct answer. It's able to take it to the next level. That's Gen AI. Then from Gen AI, you then move up to agentic AI. And I guess I'm going to make everybody laugh here, but all of you who've seen the cartoon Despicables, and you've got the little minions running all over the place. Now imagine each one of those minions being an agent, and each one of those agents is able to do a particular task. All great because they've got their own thing, but until they're actually put into a team, it's like a football player. If you've got 10 football players who all know how to play specific skills or specific parts of the field, but until the captain puts them in an order and in a particular set and gives them a strategy, they don't know what to do. So that's where agentic AI comes in. And then you've got AI orchestration. And then the next level, based on that same principle that I was talking about on the customer service side, taken to the next level, is the human in the business asks a question. Those agents go running around the system, pull the relevant data, and do those tasks automatically. That's already starting to happen. But whether it will gain sentience and it gains a mind of itself, it still requires an element of human interaction at the moment. And this is why you hear a lot of people talking about guardrails, about ethics, about this, that, the other. And this is why, because the technology is moving at such a fast pace, it's critical that those guardrails are put in to make sure that the system doesn't go out of control.
And
I want to add something on this. So The thing is that this question has come up a lot, right? And I have thought about this question like in depth. And I think what people are looking for is a more of a philosophical answer or religious answer. And I've basically went down and tried to find one. So I'll share that. And let me just share that. So basically, the Prophet Muhammad Islam says in Ruhani Design, in one of the books of references there, that if you were to research a single leaf um, for 1,000 years, then the 1,000 years will finish, but the wonders or the discoveries from that leaf will not finish. The Prophet ﷺ continues and says, because, and it's a rule that anything that comes from an infinite power contains in itself infinite wonders or properties, basically. And combine that with the two verses of the Holy Quran, which are basically we've read them at some point, but we forget that these are the two verses where the God talks about if trees were created, but if you were to make pens out of trees and ink out of oceans. And he says that this is like a verse said twice. So if you combine the wording of those two verses, what it's saying is this: even if you turned every tree on earth into pens and made ink from the water in every ocean, and then multiplied by as many oceans as you want, and then double it further, even then you will not be able to write down the knowledge of God, right? And what's interesting, God is giving us really interesting insight here that although the universe is finite, but the knowledge in the universe is infinite. So you can't the and what God is saying is that in this universe, we don't have enough resources to find all the knowledge, basically. So the universe will, if what I'm trying to hint towards is that there's a OpenAI is looking at $500 billion Stargate AI project where they have a very like massive data centers, right? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that that's it. This is the final data center, or the final set of data centers. And the answer from the Holy Quran is that actually, no matter how much resources you put at something, you have to still keep going. The resources will finish or will run out before you discover all the knowledge. So AI has a long way to go and forever to go, even if you have converted everything into some sort of computable NVIDIA chips. Even then, that's what the principle of the Holy Quran, the verses, and what the Prophet ﷺ is trying to say here. So the thing is, philosophically, AI cannot itself become better. It needs human input. That's one thing. And second is that it requires continuous resources to keep going. And that's something that requires us to keep on innovating to put resources into it, data centers to go further. That's basically the philosophical answer.
Jazakallah. Um, One other question I'll throw to you, Arif Saab, is for all of our entrepreneurs listening who are keen to start new businesses using AI or investing in AI, what sectors do you think they could focus on primarily to develop, their sort of entrepreneurial passion?
I would say AI has reduced the barrier needed to get, say, a business idea live. So previously, if you had an idea and you wanted to get it into the market, whatever it was, let's say it was building a new website for offering a new product, or if it was building an app, for example, one thing that AI has done is made it easier for people. So there are tools right now where you can go on with zero coding experience and describe your idea, and it will create a website. There's a website called platform called Lovable. Describe what you want to do. It'll create these dashboards. It'll create these apps, these kind of websites for you. There's other apps where you can describe a specific app you want to build, for example, and it'll start to build that. Then I've also heard that people who have set up their own businesses, they've said rather than needing 10, 15 people, with different skill sets, they're able to use AI to help do that, and they're able to do it with much smaller number of people. So in Silicon Valley, and these startups are able to do it much far leaner. So I think the thinking needs to be the other way around, rather than trying to think what AI idea can I bring to market. Actually, the fundamentals of business are the same in terms of, you have a product and you sell it and you make money out of that, or you take the raw materials and you produce something better and you sell it at profit. So the actual business of returning investment or returning, a return on investment hasn't changed. So first of all, think about what you already understand and what you know, and then think about how technology, it doesn't just have to be AI. How can technology accelerate what you're doing? And, inshallah, within Sanat Tijarat initiatives as well, we will start to offer these kind of idea camps or seed boot camps where you can bring an idea you may have for an existing business. It might just be something very traditional, like I know Ahmadis who've got their own clothes business where they're importing it and then they are selling them in other countries. How can we use this technology to accelerate? How can we get more product out there to a broader audience? How can we improve your rankings on searches and things? AI can help with all of those things. So that's the way to think about it, is like, think about what you know and your idea you're already passionate about, or maybe you already have, and try and accelerate it with technology would be my take.
Jazakallah for that. I just want to give a massive thanks to our panel today. We've just got a few minutes left. If you guys could just give us your maybe concluding thoughts on a few key points that you think everyone listening today should take away from this talk. And of course, just the topic of AI in the workplace in general. What would you like to impart? Nayab Saab, I'll start with you.
Thank you, then. Okay. Look, AI isn't going to be replacing people. It's replacing tasks, and that's really an important concept to remember. As I, gave some stats earlier on, the World Economic Forum, they already predict that 85 million jobs lost, but 97 new jobs are going to be created. So the question isn't really about job losses, but it's about how do you transition into those new roles that are coming up. The winners in AI are those organizations, obviously, that adapt the fastest, but bring actual benefit. Now, this is what I call the skill economy. At Heb Digital, we've across 67 countries and 102,000 training days, we've seen how access to digital skills can turn AI from a threat into an equalizer. But technology without ethics cannot it can amplify inequality.
Your own money trading. Instead,
So
discover how to act.
Sorry, just got to put that on mute. That's really the key thing. And then in terms of policy work and advocacy work that needs to be done at higher levels as this inequality grows, is how do you set guardrails in place to make sure, A, that the opportunities are available to those who don't normally get a look in, and B, more importantly, you've got to actively work to try and close that digital inclusion gap. Jazakumullah.
And Arif Saab, same question to you. Just some parting tips that you think everyone here should take away from this talk.
Yeah, be curious, be inquisitive. No one knows where we're actually going in terms of the next 5 years. Like, you're part of this journey. This change is not something that is happening to us and we have no input on it. All of us are involved in trying to decide where we want AI, how we want it to be used, which parts of our lives we want it in, which parts we do not. We're part of that whole change. So feel like you're an active part of this change, rather than feeling like it's something that is going to be done to you and it's something to be fearful of. But also be aware of the challenges. We haven't talked too much about the risks today, but things like deep fake videos. Like for the first time this weekend, I had that happen to me where my mum sent me a video that was AI generated, and I had to respond, say, this is not real. There's not really a crocodile chasing a child. It was AI generated. But that's starting to happen. So be aware as well in terms of the risks, in terms of making sure we're being we're scrutinizing things and trying to understand where truth lies as well, because that's going to be another challenge as we go forward.
Jazakallah. And we don't have too much time. Zain Saab, same question to you. What do you like to impart when the hot topic of AI is being discussed?
Yeah, so I would say that I pasted some links into the chat for courses. So one thing I would recommend is take a critical thinking course, and the other are prompting courses. So yeah, and those are both free basically. So that's the only thing I would say.
Jazakallah. That concludes our talk for this week. I'll just add that next week as well, as Nayab Saab mentioned earlier, we will have talks every Monday. Next Monday, our talk will be on the topic of CV mastery with Rehan Sayed Saab, who's a strategic senior